Okay, my name is Angela. I'm from Australia and I've just spent 6 weeks here volunteering in Nepal. I arrived at the airport and looked out for Real Gap. They picked me up and I went straight to a Sim's house because it was at night. I had a couple of days here in Nepal where I stayed with the Sim and his family, and his son Jack taught me how to eat properly, with my hands that is. And I had a few days here in Nepal where I had some Nepali lessons and did some sightseeing, met a whole range of volunteers as well while I was here, which was really cool to have met them, because when I'd gone on the safari in Chitwan later on, I actually got to meet up with some of them as well, which was cool. And not only that, but when I've now returned back here to a Sim's house, I've met some more volunteers and seen some that I'd met on my journey as well. So certainly didn't feel alone at all during any of my time here. But I had 6 weeks in total, so 1 week, or the first week was a couple of days here in Nepal doing the Nepali lessons and the sightseeing, and then obviously I had a few days in Chitwan as well. So my remaining 5 weeks was in Downey. And
what do you do in Chitwan?
Oh, in Chitwan, it was a safari, and we had 3 days, 2 nights where we went elephant riding and looking for crocodiles, and actually went looking for rhinos late at night. Saw a cultural dance and went bird watching as well, and an actual safari walk where we were trying to find tigers. I was a little bit nervous about that, but it was fine. And then, yeah, from Chitwan I went to Downey, and Downey was just amazing. I absolutely loved it. It was very remote, so it's a village in the jungle or the forest. It's a little village, and I was the only volunteer for the first week there.
In monastery, in Downey.
Yeah.
Downey is the monastery.
The monastery in Downey. And for the first week I was the only volunteer, and it put me in the deep end, but I'm so grateful that I was put in that scenario, because it actually allowed me to embrace the Nepalese culture more, and it allowed me to embrace the monastery and Downey so much more as well. So the kids became my teachers, and they were teaching me Nepali, and I became their English teacher and taught them.
Angela have got the really good Nepali. I met among a lot of volunteers. She has got a really good Nepali. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Asim. But the monastery was just amazing, and everyone is so friendly and so caring, and they really look after you, and they know that you're a long way from home, but they go out of their way to make sure you're okay. And there's a lot of cultural differences compared to back home in Australia, or from the UK or America or Canada or wherever you might be from. But I think the earlier you embrace those changes, the more enjoyable the whole experience is. But in the monastery, the children have a prayer session at 4:30 in the morning. So they wake up at 4 and then they go for prayer at 4:30. It goes for about an hour, and then they have breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. And after breakfast, then they have their first lesson for the day, which is taught by their local monastery teachers in the monastery. And during this time, I didn't attend those, but I normally woke up at about 6 or 7. A small breakfast was served to me in my meal, and it was in my room, and the meal was normally sort of curried potato with some beans, and it had like some roti, some bread to go with it. And then at 8:30 the bell rang, and it was lunchtime, even though it's 8:30 in the morning, but it was lunchtime, and that's where we lined up for our meal, and we got some rice and then some lentils and some vegetables, and we all ate it with our hands in the room. And then we had to wash our dish, and the kids got ready for school, and we went to school from 10 till 4, and it was about 7 lessons of 45 minutes. And each class has its own English books that they learn from. There's 2 English books, and once you figure out which page the kids are up to, then you can teach from there. You have to kind of wing it a little bit, because it's not as clear cut as, say, probably what we're used to back home, but they certainly love us being there. So school finished at 4, and then we had prayer session at 6 o'clock, and prayer session went for an hour, and that was compulsory. That was I absolutely loved that. and I cried when I left, saying goodbye to the guru. But then after the prayer session, it finished at 7. We then had dinner at 7:30. So it's a long day in the middle of not having any food. I managed to take some biscuits with me that I'd nibble on during the day when time allowed. But they also give you, once you get back from school at 4 o'clock or 4:30, they come and give you a cup of tea and some biscuits in your room as well. So really it's just the middle of the day that when we would normally eat lunch around 12 or 2 that you don't get fed. But it's Nepalese way, and if you embrace it, you just enjoy it so much more. So 5 weeks of that similar routine, and I only got back to Kathmandu yesterday, and I'm missing Downey already because I loved it so much, and it was just amazing. I went to the local market with the principal and helped buy their vegetables, and the whole experience was just fantastic. And the kids have taught me and I've taught them, and I couldn't have wished for anything better. And now I'm back here, and I've seen friendly faces again with Asim and his family back at his house, and I've seen some volunteers again, and there's so many volunteers, it's crazy. Given I haven't seen any, I've only had 1 or 2 other volunteers with me during the 5 weeks. So it's just been amazing, and I've loved it, and I'm sure everybody will. So with the monastery, I'm really happy that I chose the monastery over the orphanage, in a sense that I was with the kids basically 24/7 all the time. The monastery, we had so many different festivals throughout my 5 weeks there. We celebrated the Full Moon Festival, where a lot of the local people from the village would come to the monastery and donate food or donate money. We sat through a 3-hour prayer session with the local villagers as well, local people from the village, and it was just such an amazing experience. It was something that I'll never forget. And I don't think, orphanages, I think, I've been to an orphanage in Cambodia, and that's why I wanted to choose a monastery this time, and I don't regret that choice at all. It was just fabulous. And you learn so much more about, I think, the Nepalese culture as well, and their religion through being at the monastery. So something definitely worthwhile, yeah.